This week, Dini and I merited to marry our daughter Malka to Shneki, and at the same time, Dini and I celebrated our 28th wedding anniversary. And I was thinking about marriage, obviously. Now, in Jewish law, if you perform a mitzvah that requires a blessing, but you forgot to recite the blessing, once you perform the mitzvah, it's too late to recite the blessing. However, there's one exception, and that's the marriage blessings. Under Jewish law, if the man gave the woman the ring, said, Harayat Mukadeshet, you are betrothed to me via this ring, according to the laws of Moses in Israel, but the 7 blessings were not recited, even if you remember at a later time, you can actually still say the blessings. And the question is, why is marriage different than any other mitzvah that you could only say the blessing at the time of the mitzvah, but marriage you can do at any point? And the answer is because the Rogatchover Gaon, who lived at the end of the 19th century, said that marriage is not just something that happens under the chuppah when the man places the ring on the bride's finger, but marriage is an ongoing process. It's not like you got married X amount of years ago. Every moment the marriage is continuing, it's a continuation of the creation of marriage. And therefore, whenever you realize you did not recite the blessing, it's not too late to recite the Sheva Brachot, the 7 blessings. However, there was a great rabbi who was a contemporary of the Rogatchover Gaon. His name was the Brisker Rav, and he disagreed. He said, no, it happens at the time of marriage under the chuppah. It's not an ongoing event, and therefore, if you did not recite the blessings, you cannot recite it later. And they tell a story that one time the Brisker Rav met the Rogatchover in the street, and he said to him, Mazel Tov. He said, why you wish me Mazel Tov? He says, well, according to your opinion, marriage is an ongoing event. So even though you got married many years ago, it's as though you got married now. So I'm wishing you Mazel Tov. To which the Rogatchover Gaon responded to the Brisker Rav, and he said, you don't have to wish me Mazel Tov, because the Mazel Tov you wished me at my wedding is also ongoing. And therefore, it continues till this moment. But regardless of the halachic question, the lesson is very powerful. We often think about marriage of something that happened at a certain time and in a certain place. Where did you get married? When did you get married? But what the Rogatchover is teaching us is that every moment that you're married is a continuous infusion of God's infinite ability to connect 2 souls together. And so it's not something that you should only think about in the past tense, but in the current present tense, it is ongoing. You're being remarried, so to speak, every moment of your marriage. You're being remarried again. Your souls are being reconnected over and over again. And perhaps that's a very good perspective of marriage, because in life we often take things for granted. When I look at our daughter, she's so excited. She's a newlywed. But after 20 years of marriage, or 28 years of marriage in Dina in my case, perhaps one could take it for granted. And therefore, the idea is that no, every moment when you look at your spouse, you should realize that this is a gift that God has given you this very moment. And therefore, you should celebrate your spouse and your marriage every moment of your life. And when you live with that enthusiasm, that excitement, that newness, that freshness in marriage, then it doesn't matter if you're married 28 years or 58 years or 78 years, you always feel appreciative, grateful, and thankful to Hashem and to your spouse for the blessing of your marriage. There's a story told about a certain chassid who was very poor. And when the holiday of Sukkot came, he couldn't afford to buy a lulav and esrog. So as he was wrapping up his tefillin in the morning before Sukkot, thinking, what am I going to do? How am I going to get a lulav and esrog? He had an idea. He said, under Jewish law, during the holiday, you don't wear your tefillin. So for the next 8 days, I don't need tefillin. So why don't I sell my tefillin, buy a lulav and esrog for the holiday? Since I have 8 days to put on my tefillin again, Hashem could help me in 8 days to find money to buy a new pair of tefillin. He was very excited about this idea. He went and sold his tefillin, took the money and bought a lulav and esrog, brought it home, put it down on the counter, and went off to get ready for the holiday by preparing himself for Sukkot. When he came back later that afternoon, he does not see his esrog on the counter where he left it. So he says to his wife, did you see anything laying around here on the counter? His wife said, yeah, I wanted to thank you for buying a lemon for our salad. He said, what do you mean? He said, well, I saw you went out and bought a lemon for the salad. I cut it up, I squeezed the lemon juice, I made a delicious salad for the holiday. The man realized that his wife just cut up his esrog that he sold his tefillin to buy. He tells his wife, that wasn't a lemon, that was my esrog. And his wife is waiting for him to burst out in anger. But he runs up to his wife, gives her a big hug and a big kiss. And his wife looks at him and says, Yankel, have you gone Meshuggah? Have you lost your mind? I just cut up your esrog that you took the money from your tefillin to buy, and now you're hugging me and kissing me? And he said, look, when I finished using my tefillin before the holiday, I said to myself, what's the mitzvah of the moment? The mitzvah of the moment is a lulav and esrog, so I'll sell my tefillin to buy a lulav and esrog. He says, now that you cut up my esrog, I asked myself, what's the mitzvah of the moment now that I don't have an esrog? The mitzvah of the moment is to love my wife, and therefore I'm hugging you and kissing you and loving you. That's the mindset that we all have to live with. What is the mitzvah of the moment? What are we celebrating right now? And if we live in the present and realize that our blessings of the past are continuous and ongoing, whatever blessing you have in your life, don't just appreciate it at the time of the blessing, but every moment that that blessing continues to be manifested and realized in your life, whether it's the blessing of your spouse, whether it's the blessing of your children, whether it's the blessing of your success, whether it's the blessing of your talents, your abilities, your skills, be grateful every moment of your life. And when you're grateful because you realize that God is re-giving it to you every moment, then you are joyous each and every moment of your life. Shabbat Shalom.